Welcome to the Dr. Cherie podcast. And this is part of my series with Shiri Ben-Arzi. And we have had a wonderful experience dealing with the challenges that we all, every single one of us, are dealing with on this planet having to do with COVID-19, or if you want to call it the coronavirus. So I want you to join me again in our terrific series to welcome Shiri to our show today. And I'm delighted to have you with me. Hi, Shiri.
Hello, I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah. So today I think we're going to talk about loss.
Yeah.
Because it's a big topic and it's something that I think we need to address it.
Yeah, I think it's time.
Yeah. So when we talk about loss in the generic sense, it means that what one expected or hoped or planned or anticipated is no longer an option.
Mm-hmm.
And
I like to say, sorry.
Yeah, but you go.
I like to say that loss is an event of separation. We're separated from something that was a part of our lives. Mm-hmm. It can be a person, it can be a thing, it can be an attachment. And then grief or bereavement is the process of recreating a relationship and shifting from living to being alive and creating meaning in our lives. So grief and bereavement is the process of coming to terms with that separation.
I love that. So one of the things that years ago they did a study at Harvard about people who are in their senior years, which you are not yet, and what it was that created that success. For why some people were happy and feeling that this was their best chapter, and why other people were miserable. And they came up with 4 basic pillars. Number 1, they were healthy. So that was in place. They didn't have a loss about their health. Number 2, they were financially stable. So they didn't feel in fear about money all the time. Mm-hmm. Number 3, they had relationships, not necessarily just one, but they had healthy relationships, most often with younger people, keeping them young. And the 4th one was that they learned how to successfully deal with loss. And I think that's important. And it's a big one also, because if you can imagine that learning how to successfully deal with loss as you're getting older, and you may have loss of mobility or loss of sight or loss of hearing, loss of friends, loss of identity, being separated from your job, just loss of different things. Loss is more than gain. And so the capacity to deal with that loss in a way that maybe integrates mind, body, and spirit and adjusts to the new reality is probably, I think, what the study was focusing on.
That's interesting. I think that coming to terms with loss is a big part of creating quality of life. Because loss is a part of life, and death is a part of life, and death is not the only form of loss. We go through loss all our lives. Loss is change. Every time something changes, we lose a possibility. It's like Robert Frost's poem, okay? Every time we choose a road, we lose the road that we didn't choose. So we're dealing with loss all the time. We just usually don't name it, as loss, and we don't necessarily consciously grieve about it. So when we put loss on the table, people think, oh my God, death. No, don't talk to me about death.
Well, yeah, but it's interesting that you would bring that up, because you and I have diametrically opposed experiences of death. And I'm going to tell mine first, but then I want you to tell your experience of death, because I think it's really apt. And I think it's a real tribute to your mom, who had the wisdom to be able to deal with what was. Okay, so in my childhood, I was totally sheltered. I had no experience of death whatsoever. When people died, they just weren't around anymore. I had a little brother who was born dead. We never talked about it. We never addressed it. It was never in the conscious conversation. So when I had a friend of mine when I was a teenager who was in college, and he was out on the roof of one of his dorm. He slipped and fell and died. And that was my first experience of death as a 16, 17-year-old girl. And I really felt like I was in the woods. I didn't know how to cope with it. So I want you to tell your experience of your great-grandma and your mom and how they handled it, because I just think it's brilliant.
Yeah. My first experience with death was the passing of my great-grandmother when I was 5. And my mom insisted on taking me to the funeral because I knew her. She was part of my life.
Of course.
And I remember that my mom took me with her. And what I didn't know later, a few years later, she told me that, she really, the rest of the family was very angry because they thought that, I shouldn't, including my grandmother, which was my grandmother's daughter. She said, this is not where children belong. And my mom insisted. And we spoke about it. And I was very curious because it didn't make sense. And I said, so what are we burying and what's happening and what does it mean? And my mom just simply said, everybody has a soul. And great-grandmother's soul, separated. She passed on. The soul is eternal. And what we're burying is the body. And the body's just a part of it. So we're going to say goodbye to the body because we love the body. And we used to hug the body, and the body is what we know. But, she's with us. And that really, I was very curious. I was asking questions. So God bless my mom. She answered everything very calmly. No drama. It's like, and when she didn't know the answer, she said, well, I don't know. Let's think about it. And when I asked her, and she allowed me to touch the grave, and I wanted to see if my great-grandma was really there, she said, no, that's not appropriate. Okay, we don't do that. So there were very clear boundaries there. I said, you just need to trust that it's there. And I was really worried, whether she's going to be cold or, she's going to get wet in the winter. And my mom said, yeah, but, the body changes. Okay, and you just need to trust that. And this is what we do. And what's really important is the soul. And then I got really curious about the soul. So where is she? And my mom said, I don't know. She's all around. I said, could she be in the sky? My mom says, does it make sense to you? I said, yes. I said, well, then she's in the sky. And I remember for weeks after the funeral, I would walk about and I would say, hey, good morning, Grandma, like that. And it wasn't an issue. It was part of life. And I got to see my grandmother grieving for her mother. And I got to see my mom modeling how to support someone that's grieving. Mm. And I just learned I had a good model.
So that was probably some of the seedlings of the work that you do now.
I think
they
so.
Were planted at 5 years old, and you got to experience, ask questions, and watch the behaviors that were valuable to you that you could then pass on to others as an adult. How brilliant.
The second part was at the age of 13 or 14 when the mother of a very good friend of mine passed away. He had CF. He passed away a year after that. When she passed away and I knew her, I went to the funeral. My mom said, if you want to go, go. And I came back and I was devastated. And then she sat me down for a conversation and she says, it's not about focusing on her passing. It's about focusing on what she stood for when she was living. So how can you celebrate the respect that you had for this woman and the relationship that you had for this woman? I said, and that is true respect. And the other thing that she said to me, which I carry with me is, those of us who are alive need to be busy with the business of living. That's it.
Such wisdom.
Oh, great. Yeah, she is brilliant, my mom.
I just love it. So, all right, let's talk about more about this loss, because as you mentioned before to me when we were talking before our show, that these days people are dealing with loss, whether it's the loss of having their prom or the loss of graduation or the loss of a wedding or the loss of a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah. I mean, they're dealing with loss of something that was going to be important as a rite of passage, something precious, something meaningful, and a significant moment in time.
So we are dealing with all kinds of loss. We're also dealing with the loss of physical intimacy for some of us because of the because of the quarantine, because we're physically separated and you know, the social distancing, some of us are losing their jobs. They lost their jobs, they lost their business. And the most important thing is that we really need to step into a place of compassion here, okay? Don't judge, don't judge. Every loss can stand alone. It's okay. There's no loss that's bigger than the other. Like if I lost a loved one, that's not more of a loss, and it's not more justified. My grief is not more justified than someone who just got her wedding canceled, or a young girl with her bat mitzvah got canceled, or doesn't matter, okay? Every loss stands alone and it's okay. Different things mean, different events of loss have a different meaning for us. What might be a significant loss for you might not be such a significant loss for me. We all grieve in different ways, and it's all okay. And the one thing that we all need is that kind of support and the permission to be true to our own process of loss.
So earlier we were discussing about the 5 stages of death and dying that Elisabeth Kübler-Ross created after she witnessed so many people going through the dying process and then death, and the people around her, the survivors, also experiencing it. And I think, you know, it's something that obviously you deal with in your work much more intimately than I do. I love her work dealing, because it can apply to change directly. But I think it would be good if we kind of review those steps together, those 5 stages.
So there are 5 basic steps. What we need to understand that there are more than 5 steps. We're going to talk about the 5 basic steps, which are denial. Like, I can't believe this is going on. I can't believe, you know, our lives just turned upside down like this. I can't believe such a pandemic is taking place in the 21st century. Okay. The second.
Also, when people wake up, like I have, wake up and say, "Was that just a dream? That's really not happening, is it?"
It's not really
happening. A dream. Now it's really, we're getting back to real life. I just dreamt that. And a lot of people are in that place called that denial.
Yeah. Now, first of all, let's not judge denial. Denial is a healthy reaction. Okay. Sometimes we need a little bit of denial. I always say to clients, it's like, imagine you have this huge steak or schnitzel or tofu steak if you're a vegan, okay, whatever, okay? You can't shove it in one bite, okay, because you're gonna choke on it. You need to cut it into itsy bitsy pieces and then just focus on, you know, digesting the piece that you just swallowed. And that's denial, because when you're chewing on one piece, okay, the rest of the steak doesn't exist, okay? So that's kind of denial, and it's okay. It's a normal reaction usually to an abnormal situation. So the first stage is denial, and the second stage is anger, okay? I can't believe that they're quarantining us again. This is not right. You know, my business is gonna collapse. How come there aren't enough tests? How come this is not okay? This is, you know.
What about my freedom?
What about my freedom? Yeah, what about my business? Yeah, this needs to be managed another way. And what about my money, the money that I lost? I bought a plane ticket. Okay, and that's anger. Stage number 3, and it's not a stage. So this is not a linear process, and we're going to say that a few times. This is not a linear process. This is not a roadmap to grief. This is a description of the stages people go through. Okay, so there's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's it. We ride off into the rainbow. So the next stage is bargaining. So bargaining is going to sound something like, okay, so I'm going to adhere to the instructions. I'm going to socially distance myself. Okay, so how long? 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month and a half. And then after that, everything's going to be okay, right? Okay, I get to have my life back. So I'm going to do, that's the bargaining. I'm going to do what you ask me, okay, in return, okay? After the time frame that you specified, I'm going to get my life back. Deal? Deal. Okay, thank you.
All right. So comes, you know, with people who get cancer, you know, and they get this point and it's like, what's the bargain? Okay, God, if I'm a good person, If I do everything I'm supposed to do, can I have my life back then?
That's what bargaining sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have what is called depression. I'm going to call it sadness, okay? Because we're using the term depression in the wrong way. There is one kind of depression that is clinical depression that is treated with medication. We use the word depression to describe a profound state of sadness, okay? By the way, because of that, there's a new term that's called reactive depression. And reactive depression is a depressive state, that profound sadness, that is a reaction to a specific crisis.
Uh-huh.
That's the new term, reactive depression. And this is what we all call with that the blues, you know, that deep sadness because we just went through a crisis.
Is it new because of this virus?
No. It's new. It's new because of all the misuse of the term depression. Okay. Because depression is a clinical term, and it's treated with medication. It has to do with the chemistry in the brain. Okay, it's a physical condition. Okay, but for lack of a better word, a lot of people use that term to describe that profound sadness. Okay, that real deep depressive state. It's not a clinical depression. Okay, but it is we need a name for that. So the name is now reactive depression.
Okay, thanks for that. That's helpful. I hadn't heard that before.
So that's gonna sound like, okay, so my life is changed. I'm so sad. I realize that, I've lost my old life. The world has changed. I'm really heartbroken. Like I'm just so sad.
And I don't know who I am anymore also.
And I don't know what's gonna be. And
before, I don't have any dreams anymore. Everything, I mean, at the simplest, silliest level, Michael and I met on a cruise ship, and he's always said to me, someday, honey, we're going to go on a long cruise. And what I said to him is, we're not going on a long cruise. Those days are over. And I think he went into kind of a reactive depression when I said that.
Yep. Makes sense. Makes sense. So, the world has turned upside down, and it's not fair, and I'm sad, and I feel like something's been taken from me, and you know what, and maybe I'm frustrated, and I feel kind of hopeless, like how am I gonna, I really didn't want to lose this, okay? I want it back. Give it back to me.
I didn't give my permission.
I didn't give my permission, exactly.
So that's even worse.
Yeah.
So there, so what's next?
Acceptance. So acceptance is not, okay, I'm done, I'm okay, yeah, where's the buffet? Let's go. That's not acceptance, okay? Acceptance sounds like, okay, this is a situation, I understand, deep breath, okay, what can I do about it? That's how acceptance sounds like, okay?
Like the serenity prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is it. Now, what do I want to make of it? How do I want to deal with it? How do I want the rest of my life to be like? That's acceptance.
That's reflective also. You have to be able to move into the reflective mode as opposed to the reactive mode.
Exactly. And it's a bit more proactive as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about me. It's not what can everyone else do for me. It's about what am I prepared to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
What am I allowed to do? What am I prepared to do? What can I do? What do I want?
What do I want to do?
Yeah. Very important.
So that's the part of acceptance. I'm going to say this again. This is not a linear process. Sometimes stages are going to overlap. Sometimes we go back and forth. I'm going to give you a great example of one of the losses in my life.
Great.
I had this dream for many, many years to do deep sea diving. I saw The Big Blue, the movie, fell in love. I had a huge poster over my bed for years. And I had this dream, and I said, okay, I'm going to go down to Eilat, and I'm going down to the Sinai. I'm going to dive in the blue hole. And I had all the information. Everything was ready, and I kept postponing it. And then 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with a heart and lung illness. no diving for me, ever, not possible anymore. And that was one of the profound losses that I felt at the time. Okay, I was told I had 2 years to live. I mourned that. I was told I would never have children. I mourned that. I was told I would never be able to dive. I mourned that. So that for me was absolutely devastating. It was absolutely devastating. So, you know, I had to come to terms with that.
Yeah.
And process that. And the idea about processing and coming to terms with loss is not that we forget the loss and it's not significant. It's always going to be significant. But part of accepting and moving forward is also being able to hold that space and really be compassionate to the part of me that's still hurting the loss and we're always going to be hurting on some level and is still longing for that thing that was separated from me. And for me, the process was identifying what did this dream of diving represent for me, and for me, it represented freedom.
Freedom. Yeah.
So I said, okay, so the way of honoring that dream is to find a new way for freedom to be manifested in my life. But you know, grief and loss come in different shapes or forms. And that's okay.
So an alternative to the freedom dream of yours was what you had to kind of explore. What could be that new freedom to you that would ameliorate the loss and allow you to have something to aspire towards?
Yeah. So I also understood that because of my medical condition, you know, the physical aspect of doing something that has an experience of freedom to it, like bungee jumping or skydiving, that's not possible for me.
Yeah.
So I had to take it to a deeper level. So living a life of freedom, what does that mean for me? Being truly free, what does that mean for me? And ironically enough, that kind of brought up the rebellious side in me. It says, okay, I'm just going to put a question mark around everything. I'm going to free my mind completely. This is so, you know, and that for me, the ability to think outside the box, the ability to look at the conditioning and recognize the conditioning around us. There's a lot of conditioning going on here, okay? And put a question mark and choose. So choice is also freedom.
Yeah. Okay, so we've covered a lot of really interesting information, and I think I want to leave our viewers with some application. So if they take the not linear 5 stages and they apply it to themselves, maybe they could check in and see, well, where do I feel today? Where do I find myself today? And how can I apply that compassion towards myself, given where I am today, to be able to let that be okay? And how can I extend that compassion to the people around me who are close to me, who I might tend to judge because they're not doing it the way I think they should?
Yeah.
Social distancing, so important. Social distancing, such an important.
I hear Donald Trump.
And we do it right now. More lives than we can save. And
oh my God, isn't that weird? He is so ubiquitous. He just sneaks in everywhere. Because I have no idea why he would be talking about social distancing while you and I are having a podcast. I have no idea.
So one thing I would say is this. Social distancing, you know what? Thank you, Donald Trump, because this is a great way to kind of bridge into something more practical.
Yeah.
Social distancing will trigger different kind of losses in us.
Yeah.
So one thing that we can leave you with is this. First of all, acknowledge that there's loss. Acknowledge it. It's okay. Loss is the event of separation. Okay, now there's a process of coming to terms with it. The other thing is find your people, the people that support you, even though you might be physically distanced from them. Okay, you have people, you have them, and even if someone let you down recently and they're not there for you like you need them to be, which increases the sense of loss and triggers you even more, there are other people. Okay, pick up the phone. Cherie's there. I'm there. Okay?
Yeah.
Hey, you're there. Seriously, pick up the phone, write an email, send an SMS.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, a person who is a subscriber to our happy hour every Sunday morning actually wrote us the other day and said, I'm feeling really alone and I want to reach out because I'm not certain exactly what to do right now. And so we responded immediately and she said, can I buy one of your books? And we said, yeah, sure, we can do whatever it takes to help. But I think it was one of those moments where somebody felt safe enough to reach out as opposed to trying to hold it together and save face and be strong. It's, I think, really important what you say about reaching out to someone that you feel is strong enough and safe enough to be able to hear your concerns, worries, feelings, losses.
Yeah. And remember that another thing that Elisabeth Kübler-Ross used to say a lot, and this is, you know, something that I say too, okay? And she's one of my heroes. We spoke about that earlier. She used to say, this too shall pass. And that's a really powerful thing to say. There were pandemics before. You've been through crisis before in your life, might be different than this one. You're gonna experience difficulty in the future. This too shall pass. There's always dawn at the end of each night, okay? Not everything is shifting and changing all the time, and that's part of the beauty of the human experience. Some of these changes choose us, we don't choose them. We have a difficulty coming to terms with them. And other changes we do choose, and we're prepared for them, and we bless them, and we're happy that they're there, you know, that they're coming. But things change all the time. So this too shall pass. And this is also an invitation to get familiar with death and loss. Don't be afraid. We have turned death into a clinical thing. We shove it into the hospital far away, but death is a part of life, okay? So let's learn to make friends with it. One of the things that I can offer is a lot of resources out there. Check out your local Death Cafe, okay? See if they went online. I am facilitating a Death Cafe for coaches, an online Death Cafe for coaches. So if it's international, if you're interested, contact me. And if you want to know how to open your own online Death Cafe, contact me too, and I'll tell you how to do it. It's easy. The good thing about Death Cafes is that they're always free.
That's great. Okay, so if people say, well, what is a Death Cafe?
A Death Cafe is a platform where people come together to get curious, explore, become friends with, talk to, look at, play with the concept of death. And the agenda is that death is a part of life. To fully live, we need to come to terms with death, okay? And in order to be able, not just to stay alive, but to fully live, we need to understand that death is there. So the more we come to terms with it, the more fully we live this human experience.
So how can somebody find out more about Death Cafe?
Well, first of all, Google it. There are Death Cafes all over the globe. There used to be, you know, in a cafe, that was the whole point, meeting in a cafe and talking about death. I'm assuming a lot of them went online, okay? So just Google it. You'll come across the website. There's also probably...
When's yours happening?
Mine is happening the last Thursday of every month. So we are meeting, I think, this coming Thursday. Yeah, this coming Thursday. We're talking about death. My Death Cafe is for coaches. So the idea is to also be able to hold the space around change, loss, grief, and bereavement as part of the coaching process, not just end-of-life coaching, but every kind of coaching.
Right. And how would they find your Death Cafe?
Just contact me. So find me on Facebook. Say hi. I want to join the Death Cafe. Say welcome.
Well, I mean, if I wanted to pass it on to people to say, do this, go there, to make it easy.
Just
I want you to
find me on social media.
What?
Find me on social media.
Okay, so Facebook Live, for instance.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Easiest.
Great. All right. So let's try to sum up if we can. Loss is part of life.
Yep.
If we want to successfully live to our senior years, we learn how to successfully deal with loss. And that's not necessarily something that everybody has because they didn't have your mother and your great-grandmother. And if you didn't have your family lineage, then you have to seek it out. Maybe in a Death Cafe, in a situation where you can talk about it freely and discuss it, or maybe you want to read something about that. I think there are some really wonderful books that have been written about death and dying besides Elisabeth Kübler-Ross. The stages that she proposed once upon a time, which have become so famous over the years, are something to be able to touch base with, like, where am I today? You know, where am I today? Am I in denial, or am I in anger? Am I in bargaining? Am I in reactive depression or sadness? Am I in acceptance? Where am I today? To be able to help us identify, acknowledge, tell the truth to ourselves, and then also see, what do I want to do about the losses I'm experiencing? Because you don't want to gloss them over. You don't want to pretend it's not true. None of those things really ultimately work for our well-being and health. So you want to face it head on. What am I losing in this COVID-19 experience? And what can I do to be able to reframe, reposition, or redirect my energy towards that thing that can help me recover through my grief or loss, to be able to keep living knowing very well that this too shall pass.
Yes. Very true. And at the end, it's all about creating a meaningful life.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Exactly. So when you define meaningful, what do you say?
So for me, and this is my perspective, meaningful means that it's all about making a difference and contributing. So it's not just about me accumulating wealth, okay, and going to the spa every Monday twice. It's also about my life being meaningful for the people around me. It can be my immediate family, it can be my neighborhood, my country, the entire globe, doesn't matter. But meaning is something that is universal. So it's about promoting goodness, it's about connection, it's about unconditional love, it's about being present in the moment, it's about leaving a better world for our children and grandchildren.
That's great. I love that. So on that note, there was a video I sent you earlier, a 3-minute video, I believe. Do you recall the name of it?
I can look it up.
It's from the virus.
Yes.
And I think it's really spectacular, and I would like to recommend it to our viewers in case anybody's willing to look at this from a different perspective. Also, I've written the words that came through. You find it? All right. Well, look at our social media pages, and we'll make certain that you get it if you're interested. I also had these words come through me from Mother Earth that I wrote down on paper, and I can share that with you as well, because Mother Earth, she's somewhere between anger and bargaining. She's no longer in denial. She was in denial for a long time and sending us big messages, and then she got fed up and she said, that's enough. And so she's in anger, and that's what this is a symbol of. She's willing to bargain with us, but we have to step up.
Well, she's a real mama.
You betcha. The other thing I just want to remind you of is that lots of people have been writing to us saying that they're interested in taking our accredited coach training program. We will be doing our first fully online accredited coach training program starting June 2nd. It'll be happening on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. And if you're interested in that and you want to be a part of that, let me know. I'll send you information. Shiri has been doing online programs forever, and so it's nothing new to her. She's in her comfort zone, totally.
Oh, totally.
I'm stretching.
No, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. And the next medical coaching training program,
Yes,
starting June 1st. So
day
if you
before.
feel called to do this work, then contact me. And if you're not a coach yet, then get trained by Cherie and then come see me.
That's great. And actually, there are some people who are just in our coach training who graduated in March that I want to connect you with. Because
oh, wonderful. I love your graduates. Oh my God. You grow amazing, amazing, amazing coaches. Every time I get an MMS graduate, I'm like, yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. It's the purpose of my life. So thank you. I'm happy to know that it's working. It's really good.
It is.
So your next one is on the 1st of June. You need to be a coach to take Shiri's training, because it's her medical training that's based on people having that fundamental coach training and then taking that to a very specific area, which she is gifted, brilliant, and experienced in. I think she's the best, the very best, if you want medical coach training. And then ours is on June 2nd. So we're right next door to each other, June 1st and June 2nd. Thank you for joining us again, Shiri Ben-Arzi. We'll have you on again because you're the treat of the week.
Oh, you're mine.
And thank you everyone for joining us. We really appreciate you being with us, and we want you to come back again and again and again. Share it with your friends, pass it on, let them know. Our only agenda is to support you in being your very best self and being able to cope with the world that we're living in now. Thanks again. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you.